Alright, so for those who are visiting, we're in the middle of our Hot Topics series. We're going to do a bit of a series on topical things that may be controversial in the public square. And I could have, of course, given a fairly broad brushstrokes of that, taken several different directions on this. So what topic I was given is money. I've gone down the line and just focusing on the Matthew passage today, and really the topic I'm going down to is what we call stewardship. So let's pray as we come to God's word together. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you that it gives life. Thank you that it shows us the way we should go as we sung in the kids' talk. Please help us to listen to you and to go your way. In Jesus' name. It's been noted that warning labels changed a lot over the years. You might have seen some ridiculous warning labels. I've got some great examples. On a wheelbarrow, signs that seem not intended for highway use. Now, to be fair, that's probably actually on the tyre. On a pram, we've got remove child before folding. People learn that one after 5 kids, but anyway. On a dishwasher, another one of our kids, don't let your kids play in the dishwasher. Or on a shirt, don't iron the shirt while wearing. Or good old likes this one, on the scooter. This morning, this product moves when used. Now, what do these guys really say? I'm sure there's a bunch of things, but what I noticed is there's a shift of responsibility, right? Albeit, in this case, probably an understandable shift. If you're silly enough to do these things, I'll let you finish that sentence yourself. But the company is saying, if you take that wheelbarrow on the highway and you get yourself killed, if you injure your child while folding up your pram, or if they play in the dishwasher, if you burn yourself while ironing your shirt, if you fall off that scooter, then we've warned you. We are not responsible. And we see this affecting society too, don't we? We see this in individuals. You don't want a baby, you get rid of the baby. You don't want a marriage, you get rid of the marriage, and so on and so on. Blame something, blame the psychology, blame the banks, blame society, blame politics. Anything except for taking responsibility. Now, this passage in Matthew, what we call the parable of the talents, or the parable of the bags of gold in your new NIV, you'll see, is talking about responsibility. What the master, Jesus, expects of his followers while he is away, while we eagerly await his second coming. Now, last week, we also, in Hot Topics, looked at money, and Chris took us through Jesus' encounter with the guy who only known as the rich young ruler. And we found out that that man went away from his encounter with Jesus sad. Why? Well, because he didn't see Jesus as valuable enough for giving up his great riches. He valued his riches more, and he wasn't willing to give them up. So this week we're going to take that idea a step further by looking at what, as I said, the Bible calls stewardship. And we're going to find out that what the rich young ruler wasn't willing to give up was actually never his in the first place. We're going to see what stewardship means, and it means, for the sake of, from this passage, that everything that we have is a gift from God. Secondly, it means that God gives us gifts that are right for us. And thirdly, it means that God gives us gifts for his kingdom and his glory. So let's have a look at those things. Firstly, everything we have is a gift from God. So what is a steward? Well, a biblical definition would be literally the ruler of the house. In other words, one who has been given responsibility to manage the affairs of the owner of the house. They don't own the things, but they have responsibility for them. We can see that in this passage right from the start. If you've got it in front of you, verses 14 and 15. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. So see, straight away there, the wealth didn't belong to the servants, but they had responsibility for it. They were to manage the master's wealth. So what is Jesus trying to say here? Who's to? A bit of context, of course, is going to help us here. If you go back to verse 1 of this chapter, you'll see that it says this: at that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like two virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. So the it, at the start of verse 14, it will be like this kingdom of heaven. But then it says something else is going to take us back further there. At that time, at what time? Back further, we see that Jesus is talking about his second coming, when he's going to come back. And following this chapter, we go straight into Jesus is arrested and he faces his trial and faces the crucifixion. So, putting all that all together, we get that Jesus is giving his disciples some last instructions before he leaves them. So Jesus, in this parable, is the master. And he's leaving us with gifts. Like what? Well, we can go to certain other parts of the world, just a few examples. Psalm 24, verse 1, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The world and all who live in it. So God can give us anything in this world because it's all his, right? Everything belongs to him. But what does the Lord do with those things that belong to him? James 1:17, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who doesn't change like shooting shadows. Or 1 Corinthians 4:7, who makes you different from anyone else? What do you have that you did not receive? So it's a very different attitude, isn't it? And if you did receive it, why do you boast as though you didn't? In other words, nothing that you have is actually yours if you're a Christian. I mean, even if you're not a Christian, the difference between a Christian and a non-Christian here is whether we admit it. But everything, every good thing you have belongs to your master, and he has given it to you to look after, to steward until he returns. And you might say, but hang on, I worked hard for this. And that's true, but think of it this way: the Lord gave you the opportunity to do that. The Lord sovereignly ordained those things to happen in that order so that those things would happen. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you received from God? You are not your own, you were bought at a price. So this is taking it even further, right? Therefore, honor God with your bodies, goes on to say. Even you aren't your own. You were bought at the costly price of Jesus' death. So even what we do with our bodies is stewardship. It's looking after what belongs to our master. So if that's true, if everything belongs to God, and everything we have is a gift from him, then it would be a mistake to think that anything we have is ours to use as we wish. For most of my life, until the last few years, I've lived in rental homes. I don't know how many of you have had that experience, but if you have, you know you, of course, don't own a rental. Someone else owns the rental. And you are given use of it for a limited time. And that means there are certain things you are allowed to do and you are not allowed to do because you're looking stuff after someone else's property. You can't go making major renovations. You can't go making modifications because it's not yours. And that's the sort of image we're getting here. When we say that we are stewards of God's gifts, they're his. We've been given them for a limited time, and we need to look after them because they're not ours. Or for another illustration, imagine you get a company car, and you're told go and buy some supplies, but instead you go to the car yard and buy yourself a new car. Of course, we'd be quick to say that's wrong. But isn't that just what we do with God's gift? Now, I'm not going down the line of saying that there's anything wrong with buying a car or doing anything like that with those things. But there's an attitude, isn't there? There's an attitude behind this. And of course, it's not just our money. I don't say we'll go abroad with this, isn't it? We steward our money, we steward our time, we steward our gifts, we steward our attention, among other things. Those things are all limited resources. Which means, to use a catchphrase that's popular at the moment, there's an opportunity cost. Who's familiar with that saying? Anyone? Yeah? A few of you? Yeah? In other words, every yes you say to something is a no to something else, right? If we buy one thing, that means that we're not going to buy the other thing. If we spend our time doing this, we're not going to be able to spend our time doing that. If we use our gifts in one arena, it may exclude using gifts in another arena. If our attention is focused on one thing, as an example, then we're going to miss everything else going on around us, right? Everything we have is a gift from God. Secondly, God gives us gifts that are right for us. Of course, you notice in the parable that not everyone gets the same gift. You'll see it in verse 15. One gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Now, most of you will know I've got a fairly large family. I've got 5 kids. And out of necessity, that means that not everyone is going to get the same thing at the same time. We just don't have those sort of resources. And sometimes there's complaints about that. That's unfair. We develop an understanding in our family, and that is that you are all different, and each of you will get what you need at the time you need it. As parents, I want to say we don't always get it right, but we've got an idea of the different needs of our different kids. Likewise, the good master, who always gets it right, gives gifts according to our abilities. So our mistake then would be comparing our gifts to the others around us. What has been entrusted to us differs from person to person. If you've got a Bible in front of you, you might know as a footnote to say that the bag of gold, or the talent using modern language, is about 20 years' labour, 20 years' wages for a labour. So even the guy with 1 coin or 1 bag of gold is given at least $1 million in our money today, right? So the point I'm getting across here is God gives no small gifts. God gives no small gifts. Even the guy who got the least got something huge. See, it's very easy, isn't it, for us to compare ourselves and what we've been entrusted with the person who has 5 bags of gold. We might say, oh, I don't have that much, or God has a gift to do with that, or, oh, wow, they can do that. They have that. What can I do with a little bit that I've been given? Even the guy who was given the least was given a fortune. But how does it make you feel when you read those words, each according to his ability? Well, we all know people who have been entrusted with more than their ability. Who's ever heard of the Pisa principle? It's summed up pretty well in that graphic. I don't know how we read it. The Pisa principle is that idea that employees will rise to the point of incompetence. In other words, you're doing a good job, you should get a promotion. Oh, you're doing a good job, you should get a promotion. And people keep getting promoted until they're above what they can actually do, right? What this actually means, and it's a bit different way of looking at it, is that God isn't going to allow that to happen to us. So when we fall into that pattern of, well, I wish I had what she has, we can say, well, no, God picked what he gave me. God has entrusted me according to my ability. And he knows. So I don't want more than I can handle. There's an element of trusting God in there, isn't it? Everything we have is to do for God. God gives us gifts that are right for us. Lastly, God gives us gifts to use in his kingdom and his glory. Now, did you notice at the start of the parable, the master doesn't give explicit instructions on how his servants are to steward his gifts? It's expected that the stewards, the servants, would know their master well enough to carry out his desires and to invest his property intentionally. Now we, as Christians, are in a better place than that. We not only know our master, and we can always know our master better, that is the Christian life, but we have explicit instructions from our master on what to do while he's away. We're to be about the business of disciple making. We're to be about the business of loving God with our whole being and loving our neighbours as ourselves. We're to keep ourselves from being polluted by evil, to live godly lives. And that's just a few examples of the commands given in the New Testament. Things the Master says we should be about while he's away. Now, of course, you notice there are two types of servants here. There's the responsible servant and the irresponsible servant. And if the basic lesson is, well, be like that guy, or be like those guys, then we should see what they're like. And I've got a few things here. First, they're diligent. If you look at verse 16, you'll see the man who received the 5 bags of gold went at once to put his money to work and gave 5 bags more. He went at once and did it. He was eager to do the right thing. Secondly, he was faithful. Again, at the end of that same verse, you put the money to work, you gave 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gave two more. Look at the gifts and the opportunities that God has given you and think, well, how can I best employ these? In this city, in Canberra, in 2023, my job, at my school, with my family, with my friends, it's a deliberate act. See, we get focused on things that might last, don't we? And we make those things an end in themselves, but instead of making them an end in themselves, those very things can actually be the vehicle for stewardship. We can steward those things, we can invest in them well so that at the return of our King who we love, who has saved us, we will be found faithful. They're successful. You notice they get 100% return. I don't know who's into investment here, but that's pretty good by any sort of measure, right? Now remember what the parable is about. It's not promising that we're going to be successful temporarily. It's not promising that we are going to be successful here and now. But the success comes, the reward comes not in this life, but when the master returns. If you are diligent and faithful with what God gives you, God is going to bless those efforts. I say that with certainty. Now that might sound a little uncomfortable to you, but remember we're talking about those blessings, that commendation will come when Jesus returns. This is what we have to look forward to. So if the responsible servants are an example, then the irresponsible servant is our example to avoid. And of course we see here in verse 18, the man who had received the 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. He didn't lose his gift, he just didn't use it. He didn't invest it, and that is the charge that the master puts against him. Does anyone do collectibles here? No? We don't have any nerds? Or at least people who are really into it. Some people collect these sort of things like this, a very small picture, and hopefully you can see the description at the top. Star Wars Disney Parks exclusive. Some people collect these sort of things for investment, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes if you go online and you look up these things, you'll see at the end of it, sometimes it's NIB. Who can tell me what that stands for? New in-box, thank you. Good accident. Thanks, Bill. I'm sorry. In other words, it's pristine, it's perfect, it's like new. But that's not what our stewardship should look like. Don't hide it away in a vault. Use what the Lord has given you. That applies, of course, not just to our money, but to our gifts, our attention, our time, and so on. When we talk about saving time, I'm just going to go down one of these lines for a bit. I mean, saving time for what? Are you just going to withdraw this big bank of time at the end of your life? It's ridiculous when we put it like that, isn't it? We use our time, we invest our time, we steward our time, we can't save our time. See, there are two mistakes that the servant made. He was distrusting and he was disloyal. Look at verse 24. The man who received 1 bag of gold came. Master said, I knew that you were a hard man, investing where you were not sowing and gathering where you were scattered. So I was afraid, I went out and hid the gold in the ground. So here is what belongs to you. So he didn't trust the master. He excuses away his own unfaithfulness by blaming the master. He didn't believe the master. He didn't believe he was one who rewards faithfulness, and in his contempt, he didn't steward, he didn't look after what was entrusted to him. See, part of being a faithful steward is what you believe about God. We see what this guy believed about God here, or about the master here, right? Was it true? No, we've already seen how we dealt with the other servants. In fact, what you believe about God is what's going to motivate you to be a faithful steward. If you think, oh, if I do more for God, if I lay it on the line, if I steward this more faithfully, if I invest in that, I'm taking a big risk. I want to say to you, yes, and they say, no, you're not. You're investing in the surest investment that there has ever been. Why? Because it relies on God's character. It relies on who He is. He promises His reward. The example in Hebrews 11 talks about this: without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to Him must believe He exists and that He rewards those who are sincere. Part of our faith is believing that God rewards faithfulness. He keeps His promises. He's someone you can trust. And in the end, we see that the irresponsible steward is punished. Why? Because his actions were the fruit of his beliefs. He's revealed to not have a genuine faith in the master, who, of course, is the one he's meant to be representing. This guy might represent people who come to church, people who do the right thing all their life, people who put on a show, but in the end, they didn't really trust the master. They didn't really believe him. Because true, genuine, saving faith naturally, organically produces good works. You can't help it, but Jesus put it this way: He said, a good tree bears good fruit. And I want you to be encouraged by this. I want you to be encouraged that what you do here and now matters. And it matters not just for now, but for eternity. God is so gracious towards us, not just in salvation, but He gives us even more grace when He says, I'm going to produce good works in you. And then get this, He says, do the good works, and He says, I'm going to produce them in you, and then He rewards us for the good works that He produces in us. How gracious is our God? We need to take responsibility seriously. We need to, as the Bible puts it, set our minds on things not on earthly things. But secondly, the unfaithful servant group, he didn't trust God the Master. It's not like he didn't lose his faith, but his lack of faithful stewardship revealed his heart, and his faith was never there in the first place. He doesn't represent a true believer who's lost his salvation, but a false believer who's walked with the Master and pretended to be part of the fold, but in the final analysis has shown that he doesn't have genuine faith. And that lack of faith is proved when he's pressed. We find out, as in the verses I read before, what he really thought of the Master. You're a hard man. As I said, that's not true, is it? We already saw what the Master's like. He's ready and willing and eager to reward those who have done good. He's characterized the Master. Now, I want to circle back again lastly, and I want to look at the nature of the reward. First is the commendation. Well done. Well done, good and faithful servant. Now, when you meet a celebrity, if you start acting all weird, I'm not being guilty of that at times. Why do we do that? Well, because we want their approval. We want them to like us. Of course, you know whose approval we should desire above all others? It's of course. And what a reward. Well done, good and faithful servant. There are some people who have never heard words of approval like that from their earthly parents. But followers of Jesus, we have guarantee that we will hear those words from Jesus. What a motivation. What a thing to get you out of bed in the morning. What a thing to make you say, how am I going to use this one day well? How do I invest it? How do I steward it? How do I make the most of this life that you've given me? So we see a commendation, but then we also see a promotion. The faithful stewards are sent over more responsibilities. God gives us stewardship of all the good things He gives us. Why? For His glory, for His kingdom. He gives us the gifts. He gives us the power to do it. He gives us the waters, and He gets the glory. So our call, brothers and sisters, is to trust in our good Master. He gives us good gifts and works in us to produce good fruit. Let's ask Him to help us to do that. Our Father, what do we desire more than to hear You say, well done, good and faithful servant, come and serve in your Master's hands. And when we see that, it's all You that's going to make that happen. You work in us to save us, You work in us to produce good fruits, and then You give us the rewards for what You have done in us. So Lord, keep working in us, keep encouraging us, keep motivating us to do the things that will please You and will build Your kingdom here on earth. Produce good fruit in us, Lord, we ask. Amen.